Here on France 24. With world stock markets at a 13-month high and the Dow Jones index topping the 10,000 mark for the first time in a year, some are beginning to suggest that the global financial crisis may be receding. This week, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs and Citigroup have all posted better than expected results, with JP Morgan recording profits from July to September of $3.6 billion, way above the $527 million in the same period last year. Google boss Eric Schmidt, whose company has also just posted a big profit for the third quarter, is so encouraged that he's now claiming the worst of the recession is over. But is this slew of positive results the herald of real recovery, or, as some have suggested, all froth and no substance? Joining me now to give us their views are Max Keiser, who's an independent financial analyst and founder of calmerback.com, and Frédéric Bonnevet, who's an economist with the Institut Montaigne, an independent think tank based in Paris. Thanks very much to you both for being on the program. Max, if I could start with that, is this all froth and no substance, or is there something to this?
Well, the word is not froth, the word is fraud. The banks have been engaged in accounting fraud. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup are all engaged in accounting fraud. They're not realizing the losses on trillions of dollars worth of bad debts on their books. They took all that government money, they put it in their pocket for the quarter, giving themselves huge bonuses this year. They're going to defer the losses to next year. And then they're going to disclose magically, oh, we have incredible losses again, we need another bailout. So this is an incredible case of accounting fraud. And I really think that it's interesting that the American peasants have got to be the stupidest people in the world today. They don't mind becoming peasants, they don't mind living like peasants, and if that's the case, then we should do nothing to stop them from, sliding into a peasant class.
So this is just a mirage created by the banks for their own benefit?
For the most part. In the case of Google, it's a different situation. They have a different model. You can't really put those two groups in the same category. They weren't out there. They weren't in Washington demanding trillions in bailouts. They have an actual business, a model that you could look at and say, yes, there's something that they provide society that is somewhat useful. Whereas the banks, all they're doing is they're predators and they're just stealing money outright from the American people and the world economy, and they have no business.
Okay, for a gigantic fraud.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. I agree in the conclusion that the recovery so far is really fragile, and that's due to the stimulus program and its structure. Yeah. But inherently, I wouldn't say the banks do not provide a decent public service. They actually irrigate the economy with the needed money, with the needed liquidity. They convey the public programs, and they actually support the economy and implement this recovery. Without banks, nothing would be feasible, which is why the U.S. Treasury and the Fed and the European Central Bank, respectively, tried to support bank capital and recapitalize those banks so as to turn them back to normal.
And
make banking functional again.
Theoretically, and this is the market's fundamentalist view. That's
to look at.
Heresy, if you want to think about it in terms of sound business or sound democratic principles. In fact, there's no liquidity being provided by the banks. They're simply hoarding the cash, and they're non-disclosing their losses. They're keeping non-disclosed losses on their books in unnumbered accounts. And I've done this myself on Wall Street for many years. I worked on Wall Street. I can tell you exactly how to cook your books if you're interested in doing so. Next year they'll say, oh my God, we have all these losses. They're not providing liquidity. They're not providing the necessary irrigation that is required by the economy to move forward. They're simply hoarding money. They're simply stealing money. They're larcenists. They're engaged in larceny. That's all they're doing.
No, I wouldn't be that critical, surely.
Okay, so what do these figures mean for you then, Frédéric?
Like those big profits. Yeah. Well, banks still have, obviously, huge losses, huge toxic assets, and those are receding. And that's primarily due to the liquidity injections. As liquidity grows, those toxic assets become less and less toxic because the households become solvent again. But that's a really long-term process, and that actually requires a stepwise process. We're just engaged in the first phase. Okay. So that'll take a while, but the authorities need to be really supportive for some time.
Max, well, households are not becoming solvent. I mean, the foreclosures are up 3.5 million foreclosures this year. It's up from 2.5 or so foreclosures last year. But more importantly, the delinquencies on the books of the banks are growing exponentially, but they're not disclosing those delinquencies because they're not doing what was asked by the regulators, was to clean up their balance sheet. They're maintaining corrupt, toxic balance sheets, and they're just deferring the losses to next year or the year after that. And this is going to be requiring another bailout. Hank Paulson's going to go back to Congress with a gun to their head and said, give us another, Hank Paulson or Geithner, or whomever they send to go down to the mafia kingpins in Congress, and they'll say another suicide bombing operation. Either you give us another $700 billion or $5 trillion, or we're going to blow this economy up. These bankers on Wall Street are the equivalent of suicide bombers in other countries. They threaten to blow themselves up and blow up the economy in exchange for huge bailout money. And for this reason, there should be a little bit more done, a little bit more bite.
I'd really love things to be so easy and clear. They're really not. That's the problem. It's all solvency is intrinsically
and steal your wallet. Is that clear? Is that clear enough for you? If I steal your money, if I take your wallet out of your pocket, is that clear enough for you? They're stealing money from people. Would you understand that?
We're trying to make people solvent again. And corporates solvent again.
You're just an apologist for banking terrorists.
I'm not. All I'm saying is the banking system is a policy tool that needs to be put to good use.
That's highly corrupt. That needs to be completely scrubbed and rebuilt from scratch because you've got terrorists, financial terrorists running the system.
No, please.
Let him speak.
Thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate I understand your point, but I'm, again, not really sure I agree. Or rather, I'm sure I fully disagree with that. The banking system is a policy tool that needs to be put to good use. What the public sectors try to do is actually try to implement a deleveraging and take this massive leverage that was provided by banks to the public sector due to an excessively accommodating monetary policy for too long, especially in the U.S. And, well, right now we try to reverse this process by injecting liquidity and by progressively unfreezing credit channels so as to make the economy work as it should.
See, Rob, what happens is when other countries like China and Russia hear this kind of gobbledygook doublespeak, they say, no, we're going to dump the dollar, as they're doing aggressively right now. They're dumping the U.S. dollar. They're buying gold. They're buying assets. And they're saying, we don't want any dollars. We don't want any more of. That's why the dollar's hitting new 52-week lows in that major index. They're saying we don't want any more of the corrupt U.S. system. We don't want any more of this fraudulent accounting. And they're actually, their program, according to Robert Fisk last week, reported that China, Russia, and these countries are actively trying to destroy the U.S. dollar as an attempt to destroy the U.S. economy because they don't want this pariah on the world stage.
Max. Well, they hold, like, the Chinese hold in excess of $2 trillion in reserves.
They also own trillions in their own renminbi, which would go up in value.
Why do they want the dollar to devalue?
Because they're tired of financing America's wars. I mean, they're financing America's wars, so they want
the dollar.
They're not
actually
keeping the dollar.
Can I just ask you another question?
That's why the dollar's setting new lows. Look at the
People's
price.
Bank of China.
Look at the price of the dollar. It's crashing.
24%.
How can you say they're supporting
the
dollar?
outstanding Treasury paper.
Max, I'd just like to ask you another question. Can I just interrupt for a second?